covering the entire Piedmont Triad and everywhere you are. This is WXII 12 News at 5.
Happening right now on WXII 12 News at 5, a voter ID uproar. Several groups are taking action after the governor signs off on one of the strictest voting rights bills in the country. We'll have more on that in a moment, but first we're starting off in the Weather Center. Chief Meteorologist Amy Pope is tracking some storms on radar.
Yeah, it started about 2 o'clock this afternoon. They were boomers, had quite a bit of lightning with them. Also, a lot of heavy rain coming down. You're looking at downtown Greensboro right underneath it all as we speak. You see this line of showers and a few embedded thunderstorms pushing through. Now we've got very heavy rains reducing visibility. That's causing problems out there on the roadways. You can see the flashes of green too, in particular across Yadkin and Forsyth County when those storms rolled through. They are now anywhere between Lexington and Greensboro. So we're going to take you a little bit closer, show you the heavier pockets of rain right now just east of downtown now, moving away from downtown Greensboro. The heaviest rains also pushing toward Pleasant Garden. There's still more wet weather though along Business and I-40 as you work your way back to the west. You can see wet weather too over Bryan Boulevard, south and west toward High Point with rains coming down at this hour. We haven't seen quite as much lightning over the last 15 to 20 minutes. And as you move into Forsyth County, most of the rain is pushed off to the east. Heavy rain pockets continuing east of Lexington. Now this is the first wave and probably the most potent wave of storms that's going to come with this cold front. Anticipating heavy rain and flooding in the eastern triad now with that line approaching. Frequent lightning. We could also have some damaging wind reports, but we have not seen any of that as of yet. Later on this evening, though, that rain sweeps off to the east. We have a scattered shower chance, and we've got a huge weather change for you, so stick around for that.
Remember, keeping track of the forecast is easy. Just click over to WXII12.com and check out the interactive radar feature in the weather section. Back to our top story. Just one day after the governor signed it into law, North Carolina's new voter ID legislation is under attack. 2 lawsuits will challenge it in court, and Senator Kay Hagan is calling for an investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice. We begin our coverage with the legal fight. Bill O'Neill is in Greensboro with the story all new at 5 o'clock.
Opponents filed a lawsuit challenging key provisions of the new voter ID law. They include cutting back the number of early voting days from 17 to 10, eliminating same-day registration completely, which allows people to vote and register all on the same day. And it prohibits out-of-precinct voting. Under the new law, those ballots would now be tossed out. Today, representatives from the groups that filed the lawsuit, such as the ACLU, the Southern Coalition for Social Justice, the League of Women Voters, and others, held a news conference at Greensboro Civil Rights Museum. Their lawsuit claims that North Carolina's new voter ID law violates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits any changes in voting laws that abridges the rights of people of color.
We think the data that we used in our complaint that we filed yesterday demonstrates that disproportionately African Americans use early voting, they use same-day registration, and they use out-of-precinct provisional ballots in order to exercise their constitutional rights. This is going to abridge that right.
It's not clear how long this legal battle will last, but opponents say they're hoping the courts will step in with an injunction that would prohibit this law from going into effect, at least before those upcoming primary elections in 2014. In Greensboro, I'm Bill O'Neill reporting. Back to you.
We caught up with Governor McCrory during a visit to the Piedmont today. Here's what he told our cameras about the voter ID law.
We're going to have the same number of hours open for early voting as before. It's just going to be in 2 weeks in which every precinct will be open, not selective precincts picked by the political party. It's going to be fairer elections. It's going to be more honest elections. And my job is to protect the ballot box.
The governor was in Mount Airy as part of his Main Street tour. It was his first visit to the city since taking office in January. Meanwhile, the state chapter of the NAACP held a news conference voicing its opposition to the new law, specifically the requirement to present a valid photo ID at the polls.
We will fight this race-based, immoral, and regressive bill with everything we have, and we know we will be victorious.
Republicans who passed the bill disagree and say provisions are similar to those in other states. North Carolina U.S. Senator Kay Hagan is speaking out tonight about the voter ID law. In a statement released to WXII 12 News, the Democrat says, quote, "I strongly encourage the Justice Department to immediately review North Carolina House Bill 589 and take all appropriate steps to protect federal civil rights and the fundamental right to vote," end quote. You can count on WXII 12 News. We bring you the latest coverage on the North Carolina voter ID law, both on the air and on our website, WXII12.com. Tonight, Winston-Salem police are investigating a hit and run that sent a man to the hospital. It happened just before 11 this morning on West Mountain Street near Kernersville. 21-year-old Richard Byers was found lying in a grassy area with severe head injuries. He was taken to Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center, where we're told he is in critical condition. Hundreds of jobs are coming to one Piedmont community. This after gunmaker Sturm, Ruger and Company announced it plans to set up shop in Mayodan in Rockingham County. We get more tonight from Rob Wu.
The chairman of the Rockingham County Board of Commissioners says this is one of the largest announcements since the 1970s. A new company coming to town, bringing with it nearly 500 jobs.
And welcome you to Mayodan, North Carolina, to Rockingham, and North Carolina. Thank you. God bless you.
State and county officials applaud for the arrival of Sturm, Ruger and Company. The gun manufacturer is opening up a plant that will create 473 jobs over the next 5 years. The $26 million investment will sit at the former Unify plant in Mayodan. Back in June, the company held a job fair to gauge the level of local talent before making a decision. What they saw set North Carolina apart, which is great news for the county.
There's going to be a huge ripple effect because there'll be sub-suppliers, tier 1, tier 2 suppliers that supply goods and services to Ruger.
The effects already felt by the machining program at Rockingham Community College, where there's already more prospective students than spaces available.
We're actually taking names for a waiting list, and we're going to explore the possibility of expanding our program to actually run it at night.
The school says the hard part is finding an instructor that hasn't been picked up by a local manufacturer. I'm Rob Wu, WXII 12 News.
After 50 years in business, a Triad company announced today it is closing one of its divisions. Hoosier Rentals in Winston-Salem says the economy is forcing it to close its tool division, leaving 5 people without work. The company, which rents out equipment including jackhammers and front-end loaders, plans to sell those items. An emotional call for action tonight from families who have lost loved ones in accidents involving heavy trucks on the road. They made their plea to U.S. Senator Richard Burr. Margaret Johnson is live in the newsroom now with that story.
Well, good evening to you. Those families want tougher federal regulations, so they say no other families have to suffer like they have. And this morning they appealed to Senator Burr to join their fight. Jackie Novak was among them. Her 22-year-old son Chuck and his girlfriend were killed by a big rig. The tractor trailer plowed into the back of their vehicle, ran over it, and crossed the median, with the son's car being dragged underneath.
My son's girlfriend was decapitated, and my son's injuries were so extensive that I wasn't even allowed to hold his hand. They said his hands were too damaged, so we didn't get to say goodbye to our kids.
So the Truck Safety Coalition is pushing for better, stronger underride protection to prevent accidents like that one. They want the government to put the brakes on big trucks getting any heavier or larger, and they want them to carry more insurance protection to cover victims they kill and injure. And the coalition says Senator Burr was very receptive to most of their concerns, even promising to write a letter to federal regulators in Washington. Back to you.
Thanks, Margot. Sewer line repairs are forcing Greensboro Urban Ministry to make some changes to some of its outreach programs. For the time being, Potter's House will serve its daily meals from 10:30 to 12:30 at Shiloh Baptist Church on Eugene Street. Workers at the Urban Ministry say they are in desperate need of food that can be served without heating or washing, such as sandwiches, canned fruit, chips, and water. Reverend Mike Aiken says he has no idea when the problem will be fixed.
We're hoping it won't be very much longer. This is the 4th day that it's happened, but we still are working on issues, and we're hoping we can get it resolved soon. We hope the problem doesn't get worse before it gets better. So we're saying prayers right now.
As for those sewer line repairs, that's estimated to cost at least $100,000. Weaver House, which provides a night shelter for the area's homeless, will still be open at Potter's House, but the kitchen area will be unavailable. A man arrested in the abduction of a Virginia teenager faced a judge today. 48-year-old Randy Taylor was arrested Sunday in the disappearance of 17-year-old Alexis Murphy in Nelson County. She has not been seen since August 3rd. Taylor was appointed an attorney to represent him. His next court appearance is in January. Months after the deaths of 3 people at a Boone hotel from carbon monoxide poisoning, state officials say their employees made no mistakes in the investigation. Fire officials were criticized for not testing the room at the Best Western Plus for carbon monoxide after the deaths of a couple in April. A child died in the same room in June. The Department of Health and Human Services says it took about 6 weeks to obtain toxicology test results for the couple. The department says it was not told the information was urgently needed. The investigation continues tonight into the scaffolding accident at a North Carolina high school that injured 8 people. It happened yesterday morning in the Marion community of McDowell County. Some of the workers fell more than 30 feet. The conditions of those hurt have not been released. The Justice Department has filed a lawsuit to block the merger of American Airlines and U.S. Airways. The $11 billion merger would create the world's largest airline. The lawsuit claims it would reduce competition, meaning air travelers would pay higher fares. Sally Kidd has more from our Washington newsroom.
It's a 56-page complaint filed in federal court this morning, and it contends that the merger would hurt consumers. U.S. Airways and American Airlines filed for the merger in February. The Justice Department says combining the 2 airlines would result in consumers paying higher airfares and fees and having fewer choices. The airlines say they intend to mount a vigorous defense to the lawsuit. A spokesman says the merger will enhance competition and provide passengers with access to a broader airline network that will give them more choices. The companies were expected to close the deal in the 3rd quarter of this year, but U.S. Airways CEO Doug Parker says that won't happen now in light of the lawsuit, but he's still hoping to get it done before the end of the year. Reporting from Washington, I'm Sally Kidd.
U.S. Airways has a call center in Winston-Salem. American and U.S. Airways compete directly in more than 1,000 routes in which one or both offer connecting service. A tourism boom coming up on WXII 12 News at 5. We'll fill you in on the good news from a new report. Also, back to school in some parts of our area. More on the first day for students and teachers.
And putting the wind in the Wyndham. I'm Kenny Beck live at Sedgefield Country Club. It sure isn't golf weather right now. So what happens if this happens over the weekend? We will hear from the PGA Tour's meteorologist next.